All right, so now we're at the final session of our stay-at-home retreat, and it is interesting how time flies so fast, right? Seems like we just started just this morning. And we're going to be looking at some more Q&A, some more question and answers. And then we'll go ahead and meditate together to conclude. So the first question, it's in reference to meditating on the seventh chakra and feeling unconditional love. Well, there's numerous stories about why that might be the case. The seventh chakra is said to be beyond duality, in the same way that the central channel, the sushumna, is said to be that way. And also, people have found that when you hold your awareness up here, or when certain parts of the brain that are stimulated by holding your awareness up here, it gives one the feeling of unboundedness, of having no boundaries. And I don't mean in the sense of being psychically ungrounded like we've been talking about. I mean as if you are one with everything. So there is a real distinct reason about why you want to keep your attention up here, even neurologically. And when you feel like you are one with everything, you tend to have a sense of unconditional love. So that's why that usually works. That's why it's also a very good space to hold when you're meditating, is up here on the crown. Were you taught the energization exercises by Mr. Davis? What are your thoughts? I was not taught the energization exercises. I never felt compelled to learn them. I've heard people talk about them, and I think if you just do some Qigong or Tai Chi, you're going to get the same benefit. I've never practiced them myself. I do feel that exercise in general is good. And again, we do have to kind of remember the time period in which this was occurring. You know, Yogananda was talking to a lot of middle-class Americans at a time when, you know, there was not a big exercise fad. And so he had to get them to do something. And getting them out to move a little bit, to do, you know, these kind of breathing, strengthening kinds of things, that was better than nothing. All right, so we do have to keep things into perspective like that. But I can't comment in regards to what they do or what they don't do. I can only comment on what I've heard because I've never explored them. Okay, so a comment comes in about an individual retired last year, and they keep themselves busy from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., and it's distracting. How to guide to handle this? How is it distracting is what I would ask you, because it would seem to me if you're only doing some extra work from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., that's actually pretty good compared to the hours most people have to work. So if you can give me some insights into how it distracts you, then maybe we can talk about that. But I'm not sure. That sounds like a pretty good schedule to me. Okay, so another comment. In the previous time, I had you link the Soham mantra to the Sushumna breathing. Remember that from our past meditation. And it seemed to make this person a little crazy. He said doing the mantra while visualizing the cold and warm journey up and down the spine took away from the ability to follow the breath. So they dropped the mantra. Nothing wrong with that. Perfectly fine. All you do is Sushumna breathing. Some people do find that they need that extra thing for their mind to do so that they can stay focused. So if I recommend things like that, and you find that you only need one or the other, then just do one or the other. You may find in time that it becomes easy to follow the breath, to do a mantra, and to feel the sensation. If it never happens, you haven't lost anything. I just recommend those kinds of things to really help fully engage a person's attention while they're practicing. And you know, all those complicated meditation techniques, they're so damn complicated because your mind is so clever that they try to give you so many things to do that your mind really has to focus on it. So again, that's why I often say that the more complicated a technique is, the less advanced it actually is. Because the complication is really there just to give your mind something to do. So that's why you want to be real cautious about trying to define advanced techniques, because of the more things you have to do. If you want to be an advanced meditator, aim to do less things. That's really the way to do it. Okay. Another question comes in about, I guess, the donation for this class. What's advised, and it's whatever you want. I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. And everyone's different. You mentioned that the standards in one country are different than the standards in the other. Well, even in a country, the standards are different. I mean, when I first started going to meditation retreats, I was just out of college and I had no money. So I would go for a whole week. I would stay in their houses. I would eat their food, and I would donate $40 because that's all I had. And it was fine. Whereas other people I know are extremely wealthy, and to donate what I would consider to be an excessive amount, to them, that's just like, change in their pocket. So I don't give any recommendations about, what to contribute, what not to contribute, because for some people, $40 might be a lot. For another person, a lot of money might be hardly anything. And it also comes down to how do you value, what you've learned. If you really value it, well, then make that part of your thought process. If you don't, it's just an interesting thing for you to do for the weekend, some entertainment, well, consider that too. But the trouble I typically have when it comes to, when people ask me for, considering what to contribute, or if they want a session that's actually my work, meaning I don't do it on donation, I have a set fee, and they try to give me the poor me phrase. Well, I ask them, well, do you have a cell phone? Do you have cable TV? I go through all these things that they probably have and they waste a lot of money on. Do you go out to eat a lot? Do you, spend money on alcohol or any other kind of entertainment in that regard? I say, well, stop doing that and save up your money, and then you can afford the session. And again, that's what I did when I was just out of college. When I wanted to learn something and I didn't have the option to do a donation, I just didn't do a few other things that took my money away and saved up for it. So just to get down to the point here, when it comes to contribution or donation in this particular situation, I just set this class up. I had no expectations for any kind of compensation. I just wanted to do it. But if you wanted to make a donation, that's completely up to you. But whatever you do, I can't decide that for you. And I don't want to decide that for you because I don't know what your situation is. And another question comes up about the donations. How does it work? Well, basically, what you can do, you will email me and you'll say, this is how much, you email the classes at ashevillevedicastrology.com, and you say, this is how much I want to donate. And I can either send you a PayPal invoice for that amount, and then you just take care of it through PayPal, or I can send you a P.O. box that you can mail a money order to. So we keep it pretty straightforward. But if you do decide to do a money order, please let me know when you send it, because my P.O. box, I don't really go check that often. So if I know you've sent something, I will make sure to check it sometime within that week. That way it just doesn't sit there. But that's how that works. It's pretty simple. Okay, another comment about the energization exercises not resonating with you. Yeah, that might be true. And that's no problem. Some people love them, right? But either way. So in my 5th session, I mentioned how Lahiri Mahasaya started his meditation after he had a family. In those times, women did the work in raising the family. So maybe that explains why there is more male yogis than females. That is why the yogi in meditation is reserved for the 4th ashram of life. Maybe, and that's a very important point. Really, if we're following the way it's meant to be laid out, you're supposed to learn your place in the world, have a family, do your job, and then retire from the world and focus on internal work. But we're at a time where we can actually conceive of both. And everyone's ashram in life might be a little bit different too. So not everyone's going to have the family ashram. That made sense when we were a young species and we had to procreate to take over the world, but we're not there anymore. There's plenty of people. Anyway, point being, I don't know what Lahiri Mahasay's situation was. I just know he worked a lot, and then he came home and meditated all night. That's all I've been told. Okay, so I mentioned how sleepiness or feeling drained can be an indication of weak boundaries. The question is, can you say more about helping to improve those boundaries? I've already said quite a bit, so review the previous session. But you've got the right idea there when you say no more often. Do less compulsive helping. Have more discipline in your life. Have a regular schedule for your meals. Make your meditation and Kriya practice more important. If you have something that's important, you will say no to other things, right? Isn't that true? If you have a favorite TV show you want to watch and someone says, hey, do you want to go out and play darts? You say, no, I got to watch this TV show. So why don't we make our meditation and our spiritual practice just as important? If you really want to, learn to play a musical instrument, you'll take the time to do it. If you don't, well, then you're just going to half-ass it and it's not really going to do anything. The same is true for anything in life. Okay, so back to the original question about spending time from 9 to 3:30 during the day in a pursuit that is post-retirement, but takes up a lot of time. And the only thing I can say is if you don't need to be doing that, or if you don't need to be doing it as much, then you have to just discipline yourself to cut back on it. Or maybe in the middle of it, discipline yourself to go focus on meditation for an hour and train yourself that during that period of time in between 9 a.m. and 3:30, that's all you are focusing on is your particular path and practice. Or train yourself, force yourself. This is where your fiery willpower comes in. So once 3:30 rolls around, you turn off the computers, you turn off even thinking about it, and it might take you a while. You have to force yourself to stop. And I'll tell you from experience, over the years, as I've become a more well-known astrologer, and there's still just me and one other person working here, 10,000 people on my YouTube subscription, and they all want a session. And you can imagine how I could work all day, all the time with that kind of visibility. But since I know that my practice is most important, I have a set period of time that I work. When I'm done with that, I had to train myself, turn off the email, turn off the YouTube comments. And if it's going to take maybe 3 or 4 days before I even get to someone's email, I can't help it. I'm only one person, and I'm not going to let my life be driven by the work I do. The work is to support my capacity to serve the world, sure, to provide for my family, but also so that I have plenty of time to meditate and do things like this. So you just have to find a way to just take a stand and compartmentalize that aspect of your life. That's probably the best thing I could advise for you. But also, if it's not something you have to do, then don't do it. That's the other issue. Okay, so again, Hebrew, just email us at classes@ashravedicastrology.com what you want to donate, and then we'll send you an invoice through email from PayPal. So you'll be able to take care of it all that way. All right, so another question. Sometimes in meditation, my body almost seems weightless. My arms float up and odd stuff like that. Should I just keep my hands in my lap or let my arms float around? It sounds strange. I would just let your arms go and see if you eventually totally lift off the ground. Try that a few times. And if you float, that's wonderful. Stay with that. But if you don't and your arms are just doing interesting things, just try to relax more. Again, anytime your body starts doing things in meditation, the best thing to do is just more intentionally turn within and just consciously let it go. Just let your body relax more. And you might find that helps out quite a bit. So can't I just sit there and focus on the center where all the spectrums of light diverge out? I think everyone sees it when they close their eyes. I'm not sure what you mean. Describe that a little bit more, because when I close my eyes, it's just black. Yeah, and here, going back to the energization exercises, Julie mentions she's been doing them for 25 years and she loves them and they're very helpful. So that's great. Everyone's going to have a different experience. Okay, so then the other comment, and if there are more questions, go ahead and type them in, because we're going to be wrapping up the question section here if no one else has anything to say. But while I speak to this next one, let's just see. And again, it's speaking more to this individual does what they do. It takes up a lot of their time to keep them busy. Otherwise, laziness creeps in. I understand completely. It's hard for me even to really, like when I go on personal retreats or take time off, I still make it a point to write and to, work on book ideas and stuff, because it's just these things, creative ideas keep popping in my mind and so on. So what I would say is if what you are doing is not necessary, it's not necessary in the sense that you need it to make sure you've got food on the table and you can pay your rent or pay for your home, and you enjoy it as a hobby, okay, nothing wrong with that. Do it a little bit. But if you need something else to do with your time and you have free time, maybe consider volunteering. Maybe find an organization that you can volunteer for. That way you're being of service to humanity in a very real fashion. And the kind of volunteering I'm talking about is very down-to-earth volunteering. Like if people don't have food, find a way to get them food. If people don't have clothing, find a way to get them clothing. Maybe volunteer to help people through very basic needs, and see that might actually do very well for you, for greater peace of mind. And it might even deepen your meditation. You never know. So give that a shot. Okay. So I don't think everyone sees that, Stephanie. But if you see it, that's great. She mentions how when you close your eyes, you can see something like a sparkle of a diamond. And that might be a representation of the inner light that you're able to start to see. So if you do see that, it's just like hearing that sound that we've been talking about. Hearing that sound, the inner Om vibration. Well, the same thing. You might not be an audio person. You might be more visual. And so if you're more visual, and when you close your eyes, you see a radiant light, and you do the exact same thing, instead of listening more deeply and following it, well, you see the light and you imagine that you're going through it, and you relax a little bit more, but you stay awake and you go more into it, and you ask what's behind that, and you keep flowing your attention into that. So if you have that kind of experience, that is a wonderful self-manifesting mantra, except it's visual. It is a representation of the Om vibration too. So if you have that, use that as a point for your meditation. But the goal is not to make it the end all. The goal is to use it as a point of focus, and then imagine you're going through it or into it and asking what's behind it, and always following it deeper and deeper until there's nothing else. You're just the direct experience of it, and it overcomes your entire perception in a sense. So not everyone sees that when they close their eyes. They will see it the deeper they go into meditation, though. So if you can start by seeing it, that's a good thing. All right. And if that brings up another good point, when you are meditating, sometimes what happens is you get so relaxed and you're still perfectly aware, you start to see a radiant light in your mind's eye. And as I mentioned previously, it goes away the moment you're like, oh, look, there it is. So you don't want to do that. As I always say, you got to be cool with it. It's like when you meet someone famous, the best way to just be friends with them is just to say, hey, how you doing? Not be like, oh my God, are you so-and-so? Because as soon as you do that, the person's like, oh geez, here we go again. But same thing with the inner light. The moment you freak out about seeing the inner light says, oh geez, all right, let's get out of here. Not literally. It's just a little story I tell myself. But if you can just flow into it and keep it as normal and natural as possible, it can become such a radiant light, even brighter than the sun it will seem, but not blinding, and you are absorbed in that radiance. And that's the inner light technique, right? There's the inner sound technique, the Om vibration. There's also an inner light technique. So you use the same kind of principle to follow it. All right, excellent. So good. Glad you shared that. Now, before we go into the meditation, let's just check one more time. This is our final time together. If there are no more questions, say no. If you do have another question that you're just dying to ask, say yes, and then I'll wait for you to pose the question. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and meditate. Okay, well, I've got some questions for you then. Overall, have you found this process to be helpful for you? Okay. Have you also learned not to take yourself too seriously in all of this? Good. And we'll see. And are you also aware that, when you study, when you learn these kinds of things, you're always going to be learning from someone's personality. And everyone's going to have their little quirks and their idiosyncrasies. I've got my judgments about, teachers that I don't particularly care for. I've got my judgments about other people that I think are really wonderful. And that's just because most of the time they resonate more with my approach. So at the end of the day, you just want to make sure that you never really want to play favorites so much so. You may want to admit that a particular path or a particular trajectory or a particular way of teaching works better for you. But ideally, you don't want to be too judgmental about what other people are or are not doing, because as I mentioned, this is a very private practice. You want to not care about whether your spouse is doing it, whether your kids do it, whether your brother or sister does it, whether your friends do it. None of that matters. It's whether you do it or not. You don't want to go to situations and groups where you listen to someone talk about their guru and then you feel inspired to say, "Oh, but my guru said this." Forget about all that. Just make sure that you are being as direct as possible in your own life, that you're keeping things as simple as possible, knowing you might not believe this right now. Maybe you do, I don't know. But the more complicated you make things, the more engaged in your mind you actually are. And so if you have a tendency to want to complicate things, try to avoid that, or just be aware that it's a habit that you have. That doesn't mean that if you enjoy doing things like getting the book Kriya Yoga Vichara or learning the higher Kriya meditation techniques, and you enjoy them, you just love doing them, well, do them. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that if you love chanting longer mantras and doing visualizations to gods and goddesses that you shouldn't do that. If you love doing it and it allows you to stay focused, well, do it. What you want to avoid is thinking that the more complicated something is, the more effective it is, right? That's not the case. You can do something because you just love it. But when it comes down to this direct approach to meditation and yogic realization, it is extremely simple, so simple that everyone misses it. It's, as I mentioned with that talk with Alan Watts, where he mentions the taste of water. And if you could just taste water, you would be amazed. But what do? We taste water and we make it more complicated. We add salt, we add sugar, we add spices. Same thing with our spirituality. It's as simple as everything is this one infinite consciousness. But then we end up saying, we got to have a priest to confess our sins. We got to have the right incense. We got to chant the right mantras. Got to have the right guru. Got to wear the right clothes. Got to act this way, not act that way. By the time you're done, you've got a monster. And all the while, all you had to do is sit there and be quiet. So if you like spiritual and religious things because it is enjoyable for you, just enjoy it. If you like mundane things, like for me, I mentioned, I'm not a big fan of kirtan. I would do some, when we had the center, and I don't mind. I enjoy all kinds of music. But what really makes me hit that zone is actually listening to like jazz or rock and roll or the blues. Like for me, when I hear that, that's probably the experience I imagine that people who love kirtan have, right? So you want to admit that you can see this divinity in pretty much anything as long as it's due to a natural inspiration and not due to an obsession or a compulsion. So it's okay to seek out higher kriyas if you're just inspired, if it's just a natural cultivation of what you are. But if it's because you think you need it to be better or to go deeper, that's a big trap. And when it comes to your meditation, remember, doing the Soham mantra, if all you did was the Soham mantra, and you were able to do it so well and so skillfully that on each inhale, all you heard was so, on each exhale, all you heard was hum, and that was your state of consciousness, that would lead you directly to that clear experience. But the trouble is, we think there's got to be more to it than that. But that's it. Everything is just an aid to be able to exist quietly, let go of conceptualization, and hold your mental breath as long as possible until you realize that you are beyond the mind. So keep this up. Private comment says, I've spent more than 30 years running from guru to another and wasted a lot of time, resulting in stress and so on. Yeah, it's best not to do that. A lot of people do it too, so you're not the only one. What about the story and autobiography of a yogi about the Kriya technique, number of repetitions and evolutions speed up? Anytime you do meditation, you are metaphorically speeding up your evolution. Again, you have to put autobiography of a yogi in context. And there are a lot of people need these kinds of numbers that say, do this, and in 7 years you will have gone through 1,000,000 years of evolution, because that's how their mind is functioning. They need to hear it described in that way to get them going, right? In the same way that some people need to hear, meditate and all your problems will go away. For them, that's what they need to say, yeah, let's do it. And then what they find is the more they meditate, well, maybe all their problems don't go away, but they have developed meditation, and now they understand and appreciate life itself. So there's always this kind of story. And again, I don't have, it's on by my bed, but there's a story in Vasista's Yoga. You've probably heard me tell it before. It's about a group of people who went into the woods to find firewood, because that's what they thought they needed. They needed firewood, right? And after they went into the woods and they were looking for firewood, they actually found the gem of knowledge. And so that's kind of how, in the beginning, meditation and spiritual practice works. You go looking for one thing because you think that's what you need, but you actually come out with something radically different. So always keep in mind that many things, metaphorically, theoretically, I think there is a lot of truth to that. But if you do so many kriyas, it speeds up your capacity to be clear. But that's just one way of saying meditate well and you'll wake up quicker, right? Always keep that in mind. Okay. Yeah, if I decide to do a class on the Bhagavad Gita, I'll let you know. I was actually thinking of just doing it on YouTube, just like do one thing a week on YouTube. So it might end up just being a free thing for everybody, but we'll see. It's good to ask questions, though. I do think that's important. Which edition of Vasista's Yoga do I recommend? It's a really thick one. Swami Venkatasananda. It's not the abridged version, it's the big one. That's the one I read a lot. But anyway, take it slow, apply what you've learned, review these talks. Don't get into the mindset that you need to keep hearing the same thing over and over again in a different way. You have these recordings, and there's plenty of stuff on YouTube. Go through them and listen to them, and then go back a little while later and listen to them again. And you're going to find that you learn quite a bit more through the repetition, because you will come at it from a different perspective. And, it's been a little while now, and I basically don't ever really say anything different. That's why sometimes I feel like I'm repeating stories and repeating things that I say, and I try to make apologies for it, because it would always drive me nuts when I'd hear the same thing over and over again. But then I realized that you hear it over and over again because it's so simple. So don't hesitate don't go looking for new things. If you just need to deepen what you've learned, go back and re-listen to this, or go back and reread a book related to what you want to know. That's why the 3 books that I particularly only read: Yoga Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, Vasista's Yoga. Yoga Sutras and Bhagavad Gita, I read those mainly for the first 10 years. And I started Vasista's Yoga about 3 years in. But now all I really read, to be honest, is Vasista's Yoga. That's my go-to book. And I read that one over and over again. And that's pretty much all I read. Every now and then I'll read a fantasy novel just to give my mind a little break. I like reading about Vikings. But I don't go looking for the next author. I don't find Deepak Chopra's next book or Eckhart Tolle's next book, or I don't, go looking for the next non-dualist person's book. I just focus on what I have found to be the quintessential information. And I think about that, and I rethink about it, and I recontemplate it over and over and over and over and over again. And each time a new, deeper meaning arises. And that's why in the Kriya Yoga Vichara book, in the chapter on, let's see, where was it? Objects of Contemplation, on page 159, I pretty much say what I just told you about the books that I read and list the books. But then I have passages from Vasista's Yoga that I particularly found important. And I have them there as things to contemplate. And maybe we'll do that towards the end of this session. We'll kind of consider how to use a verse from a spiritual text to deepen your contemplation. Actually, that's a good idea, because I just started reading just one of the verses from Vasista's Yoga, and immediately it puts a smile on my face. And the one that I read, which is my favorite one, the supreme state is that which is. You contemplate that. That's all you need to contemplate. But we do have a comment here. Imbue put a link to the Vasista's Yoga that I have, so I clicked on that link, and yeah, that's the one that I have. If you look here in the group chat from Imbue, there's a link to the Amazon copy of Vasista's Yoga. Okay, great. Yeah, contemplate, don't complicate, right? All right, so let's go ahead and do our meditation together. It'll be simple. Just basic stuff. So be aware of your environment. Always start with that, because you want to just be comfortable and aware of where you are, what's going on, what it seems like, what's going on around you, what's going on within you. So when I say your environment, I don't just mean what you see and smell and hear. I mean also your environment is your head. What are you thinking about? Your environment is how you feel in your body, how you feel emotionally, and so on. So take stock of that right now. Just feel it. Be aware of it. Where are you in consciousness right now? The funny thing is the more you do this, the more you check in randomly throughout the day, the more you might actually become aware of the fact that sometimes you are in a still state. It's just, it doesn't make any noise, so you don't notice it until you take a moment and look around. All right, so take an easy, deep breath in. Exhale, relax. When you're ready, close your eyes. And give your awareness to your breath. Feel the breath as it comes in and goes out of the body. And let's go ahead and do 12 rounds of alternate nostril breathing. And again, we will link the mantra so on the inhale and hum on the exhale with the alternate nostril breathing procedure. Now, wherever you are with your alternate nostril breathing, if you're done, that's fine. If not, go ahead and conclude, finishing up this round of alternate nostril breathing. But then continue to hold your attention at the spiritual eye center, the space between the eyebrows, and continue to mentally chant so on the inhale, hum on the exhale. Let that be your focus, as though it is a wheel casting off and out all distractions up into the radiance above you, clarifying your consciousness. So on the inhale, hum on the exhale. And continue to keep your attention directed at the spiritual eye center. And just ask yourself, how can I go a little deeper into this process? Continuing to practice so on the inhale, hum on the exhale. You always want to check in and make sure you're being attentive and not just getting in a mechanical rut. So relax more into the process, being watchful as the seer, the observer, and the act of seeing. Now let go of the mantra and simply sit quietly, existing as your witnessing self, the observer, the seer, with your attention at the spiritual eye center, just breathing and being. And on your own, if you wanted to sit longer in that stillness, if it was natural and easy for you, that would be just fine. But for the sake of instruction, we'll go ahead and continue on to engaging another meditation technique to keep yourself attentive to the process. So let's go ahead and give our attention to the spine. And for the next several minutes, just gently and easily with our attention in our spine, practice Sushumna breathing. Cool electrical current gently ascends up through the spine on the inhale. Warm, soothing, energetic current flows down through the spine on the exhale. So continue in this way gently and easily. And if you do reach a state where you feel calm and clear and you don't feel that you need to continue, then go ahead and stop and just rest with your attention at the spiritual eye. Otherwise, continue with the process. Sushumna breathing. And once more, we can let go of this technique, but do one final Sushumna breath, pulling the current up through the spine, all the way up through the neck, through the brain, to the crown of the head. And rest your attention at the very crown of the head, just holding your awareness here. Then letting the breath happen naturally. We'll just spend the next several minutes sitting, watching, observing as the seer, letting the crown of the head be our anchor, our focal point. And with your awareness at the crown, we'll move into a bit of contemplation. Holding the attention at the crown, I'm going to read a verse from Vasishtha's Yoga. And the verse is, Nirvana, or liberation, is the non-experience of ego sense. Nirvana, or liberation, is the non-experience of ego sense. Now think about that. Hold it in your mind. And don't think about it, picking it apart with your mind. Just hold it in your awareness with curiosity. What does that mean? That liberation is the non-experience of ego sense. Wonder about that. Liberation is the non-experience of ego sense. Ask, what does that mean? How can I experience that directly? Liberation is the non-experience of ego sense. Wonder, is it possible for me to exist and experience without an ego? Has that ever happened before? What is it like to not experience the ego sense? Wonder about that. What is it like to not experience the ego sense? What is the ego? So be curious about that. Say to yourself, when I use the term ego, what does that mean to me? And then pay attention to any revelations or thoughts or ideas that come to mind, that when you think of the word ego, that this is what you relate it to. This is, for you, what ego means. Define that based on your own understanding right now. What is the ego sense? And after you have an idea of what you mean by ego and ego sense, now hold that in your mind and consider, what would it be like if that didn't exist? What would my experience be if this idea of the ego didn't exist? Hold your attention at the crown and wonder that. Imagine it. It's like creatively thinking creatively. What would it be like if it didn't exist? And see what comes to mind. See what kind of realizations dawn, if any, at this time. And even if it's just an imagination that comes first, well, that's a precursor to direct experience. You have to be able to imagine it before you can experience it, usually. So your idea of ego, just be curious. Imagine, if I didn't have the ego sense, what would that be like? And return to the idea. Nirvana or liberation is the non-experience of ego sense. Nirvana or liberation is the non-experience of ego sense. What does that mean? Nirvana or liberation is the non-experience of ego sense. Now let go of the wondering, let go of the contemplation. You can even let go of your attention on the crown of the head and bring your awareness more fully back in your body. You've contemplated, you wondered, now the realization will come in its own time. You just planted the seed. So let's go ahead and fertilize that seed by more fully internalizing our awareness. So we'll conclude our practice by going through the chakras, chanting through the chakras. And be aware that as you feel each chakra and you chant the chakra, really sink your attention into it, relax your attention into it. And any distractions that arise, give them up, release them. So pull your attention down to the root chakra, and there mentally chant Om. Pull your attention up to the second chakra and mentally chant Om. Lift your awareness up to the third chakra and mentally chant Om. Pull your attention up to the fourth chakra, the heart chakra. Mentally chant Om. Pull your awareness up to the throat chakra and there mentally chant Om. And move your attention to the throat chakra and mentally chant Om. Move your attention to the spiritual eye, the sixth chakra, mentally chanting Om. To the crown chakra, chanting Om. Back to the sixth chakra, chanting Om. To the fifth chakra, in the throat, chanting Om. Down to the heart chakra, chanting Om. The third chakra, chanting Om. The second chakra, the root chakra, the first chakra. And one more return up to the second chakra, chanting Om. to the third chakra, to the fourth chakra, to the fifth chakra, the sixth chakra, and back to the crown. Once you're at the crown, let go of the mantra and simply imagine, feel that you are releasing your attachment to your ego sense, to your limited sense of I, to everything that makes you a little person. And imagine that you are flowing up and merging with the infinite radiance of your holistic self. Feel as though every aspect of your being is flowing into your spine like streams into a river. And that river flows up through the crown and merges with the ocean of your infinite holistic nature, letting go of all sense of individuality as you do so. Let this be an image, a feeling, an imagination for you during the final moments of our time together. And now let go of even that feeling, that sensation, and return your awareness back to your body, anchored in your body with your breath, feeling the rise and fall of the breath within the body. Feel your body from the crown of your head all the way down to your fingertips and into the bottom of your feet and into your toes. And be aware of your environment and your expression as this infinite holistic consciousness, as this individualized facet in the world of your life. Take a gentle, easy breath in. On the exhale, relax. You can open your eyes. And go about your day. So that'll conclude our meditation time together. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time out of your schedule to participate in this process. Hopefully it was encouraging for you to learn and grow. And be sure to review these recordings from time to time to help support you as you continue. And don't hesitate to use the meditations, the guided meditations at the end of most of the recordings to help keep you on track. But ideally, what you want to do is just pay attention to how the meditations were put together and follow that same kind of pattern, that same general kind of pattern on your own, so you become self-motivated in that regard and you're able to do it without guidance. And then see how it goes. Stay in touch. And if other opportunities arise where we can do something like this, we'll do so. And as I mentioned, we may be having a in-person possibility next fall just an hour or so outside of Asheville, I think. I want to double check on that today. It was a go last time I checked, but we're getting to the holiday season, so I want to make sure I get that nailed down before it gets too late. So be well, keep it simple, and we'll go from there. And a quick question arose, do I have recordings only of the meditations? I don't. The things I've been posting on the Dropbox page are the videos, but also the audio portion of the videos. So if you find the MP3 version, the audio, it says audio on there, you might just have to scroll through until you finally get to the section where we start the meditation, which should be easy to find because it will be at the end of each of the talks. All right, so be well. We'll be in touch. Enjoy the rest of your day. Keep practicing.